Fortunately, we have 24 members of our federal parliament that are standing up for Julian. Unfortunately, they only represent 10% of our parliamentarians. One of their leading lights is Senator Peter Wish-Wilson from Tasmania, who wrote to me today. And he said, "Thanks, Tony. Would you guys be willing to assist with an event on Saturday, the 20th of March, the anniversary of the invasion of Iraq? We have been discussing tying this in with Julian's persecution for exposing the lies around this war. If 500,000 Australians marched to stop the war, they should be marching again to have this extradition stopped." My fellow Senator for New South Wales, Maureen Faruqi, is interested in assisting with an event. Are you guys in touch with her? Kind regards, and thanks for everything you do, Peter.
George Orwell once remarked, "The further a society drifts from truth, the more it hates those who speak it." This week has seen Facebook censoring Australian publishers. This is a threat to democracies worldwide. Australian users have been blocked from viewing or sharing news, including directives to assist those in danger in times of emergency and crisis. The big tech giants of Twitter, Facebook, Google, YouTube and the like have a disproportionate amount of power. They use this to obstruct, demonetise and shut down those whose views do not align with theirs. Many have said that big tech companies can do what they like. They are independent entities. I would argue that they provide a service for individuals, communities, educators, small business, clubs. They really are an essential service. Students are expected to research online. Businesses and governments rely on these entities. Big tech should not be allowed to wage such power against citizens' right to know. A lack of transparency results in distrust and a deep sense of insecurity, said the Dalai Lama. Julian Assange set up WikiLeaks to move the microscope of surveillance from the government agencies checking up on the people to the government and big business themselves. His friend Carly Donnelly wrote, "Julian believed that if the public knew about the grievous injustices governments committed in their name, they would surely be outraged and demand better. We have yet to see this manifest. People need to step back and think for themselves and not rely on government to protect them." WikiLeaks published collateral murder video which showed an air-to-ground attack by two crews of Apache helicopters on unarmed Reuters journalists. It then turned on some Good Samaritans coming along in a van to try and assist, and they were shot along with some children in the van. The war in Iraq was based on lies of weapons of mass destruction. In Australia, there were protests of an estimated 600,000 people. They protested against Australia going to war, with about 36 million people across the globe taking part in almost 3,000 protests against this war. And yet, it went ahead. If a person commits a crime in another country while they're there, they should be judged by those laws. If a person is residing in Australia and commits a crime in another country, we don't believe that that is a position for extradition. If they weren't actually there, if they weren't present there, that is a question for Australian law. Barnaby Joyce. Julian is an Australian citizen who deserves our support and appreciation for uncovering war crimes and corruption in government and big business. Please call, write, email your local politicians and ask for the release of Julian Assange. He needs to go back to the loving arms of his young children, his partner, his family in general, and his friends. Please free Julian Assange.
Senator Jordan Steele-John.
I admire your persistence in courage. Hi, Kerryn.
Hi, Kerryn.
You're Julian, but
I hear you're running against global minutes. I was hoping that you're running against Sharma in Webber.
Can we tell you that for us it's really important? Yeah, good on you. I'm Jackie.
I admire your persistence.
Oh, I can't sit at home.
Yeah.
Here every
All the best to you all.
Thank you.
See you later. See you later. All the best.
And now we'll put it down.
I think listening to each other, learning about what's been happening, raising awareness, which is what you're doing.
That's why we're here, just to make people aware of what's going on, because the media isn't.
Well, all the best to you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
From 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. to talk to you about Julian Assange and claim publishing information which the US has decided to simply mark as privileged and confidential because it is embarrassing. It is embarrassing for a country to go into another and kill their citizens. It is embarrassing to acknowledge that you're using citizens' money to wage wars overseas. Our Australian Julian Assange is imprisoned in Belmarsh. It is terrifying that foreign nations like the US could extradite and charge journalists who have exposed their wrongdoings. Julian is an Australian citizen and requires urgent government intervention. From the very beginning, WikiLeaks was dedicated to transparency and democratic accountability. Transparency in government leads to reduced corruption, better government, and stronger democracies. Never has this been more important than today. If lies can start a war, the truth can stop them. If you marched against the Iraq war, please help keep us the fight for Julian's freedom. You probably know that Julian Assange has been found to be not extraditable to the US. His partner, Stella Morris, has set up an appeal because the US has decided to appeal that decision. And I just wanted to read to you the most recent information published by Stella Morris. And she says the following: 2 days before the inauguration of President Biden, the Trump administration appealed a ruling of the UK Magistrates Court made on the 4th of January this year. The UK judge had decided to block the US request for Julian's extradition on medical grounds. Very important, on medical grounds. He's severely ill and his life is in peril. The US government is now seeking to overturn that decision on appeal. Although the district judge refused the extradition, she denied Julian's bail, and so he's still being held in Belmarsh prison as an unconvicted prisoner in appalling conditions. He has been there in that prison for terrorists for almost 2 years. He's not allowed to receive any visitors, and he has no direct access to his lawyers. Julian's lawyers have already started working on their reply to the US government, and they are preparing to defend Julian's victory in the High Court. If they win again, Julian Assange will be free. The next step in the legal proceedings will be expensive, even though Julian's legal team works the majority of time on a pro bono basis. It was the Trump administration who charged Julian under the Espionage Act for exposing war crimes and human rights abuses in 2010 and 2011. The decision to indict Julian was a political act motivated by malice. Julian exposed the killing of unarmed civilians and the torture of innocent people. For that, the people who are driving this prosecution want to bury Julian in the deepest, darkest corner of the US prison system for the rest of his life. Julian faces a potential sentence of 175 years. Press freedom groups consider this indictment the single gravest threat to press freedom in the US, the UK, and Europe because of its extraterritorial nature. It is the first indictment of a publisher under the Espionage Act. If Julian is extradited, he will be put on trial in Alexandria, Virginia. He stands no chance there of a fair trial. That is where the US intelligence agencies have their headquarters. The court complex is only 15 miles from the CIA headquarters. The state is populated by employees of the very sector whose abuses and crimes Julian has exposed. The Espionage Act prevents Julian from arguing why he published, what he exposed, and the fact that his publications did not result in anyone suffering physical harm. That is the truth. That is a fact. That is uncontested. We want to ask you to join us and to join Stella Morris in this fight for justice, for freedom of expression, and for the rights of journalists and publishers to hold governments to account without being imprisoned and potentially losing their life, like here in this case of Julian Assange. Stella sends the following message to all of you. On behalf of Julian and our family, I want to thank you for standing with us and helping to raise funds for this important legal battle. It is a fight for our family to give our sons, Max, who is 2, and Gabriel, who is 3 years old, the right to grow up with their father. It is also a fight for truth and justice, and a fight for everyone's right to live in a free democracy. The fight that Julian Assange is giving for you, and for us, is to maintain a democracy. To maintain a democracy for freedom of expression, for the right to speak out freely without fear that you will be imprisoned, that your life will be imperiled, that you will be prosecuted forever and ever.
Good afternoon, folks. On this 65th Friday since the first Sydney Town Hall gathering, Julian Assange is in solitary confinement in Her Majesty's prison, Belmarsh. He is arbitrarily detained. Nils Melzer, the UN Special Rapporteur on Torture, says Julian is being psychologically tortured and his life is in grave danger while he remains in Belmarsh prison. We must work to get him out of there as soon as we can. Julian's torturers show they have no respect for human rights, justice, free speech, truth, peace, ethics, or democracy. They ignore the recommendations of Nils Melzer and the 100 medical professionals who have called for Julian's immediate release. We must join forces to save Julian's life. We must create the kind of culture that is able to resist the downward slide towards corrupt, psychopathic control. This means that we must be aware of what is actually happening and be able to voice our concerns confidently and democratically. Our government is happy to attack other governments on human rights violations. However, our government is allowing Julian Assange, a completely innocent, award-winning journalist, to be tortured to death, even though it has the power to diplomatically intervene on his behalf. It certainly is a shame. If our government is thinking it is okay to torture a journalist for publishing information, there is something seriously wrong with the way our government is thinking. Julian Assange is arbitrarily detained because his courageous journalism made irrefutable evidence of war crimes, torture, and high-level corruption available to all people. Julian towers heroically over other journalists because of his great service to the world. He has taken on those with no moral compass and courageously held them to account. He has given us a more realistic perspective of reality and allowed the truth to shine out from the murk of government and corporate corruption. Many people are beginning to wake up. We are here to provide information that will help more people to wake up and be able to direct their energies for their own good. As Julian says, they're not after him, they're after you. He just gets in the way. Politicians and the mainstream media have always lied to us, and they continue to lie to us. We must free up our minds and look at evidence that can lead us to the truth. Because of Julian, we know not to consent to the wishes of the powerful, nor to be silent about their atrocities. Julian Assange is completely innocent, and there is no credible evidence to the contrary. But everyone must know that there are many smears based on lies pushed in the mainstream media that play a major role in distorting our understanding of reality. We must rise above the propaganda and work to free Julian Assange. Keeping the truth flowing will help us attain the courage and unity we need to bring about the freedom of Julian Assange. There will be dire consequences if we continue to allow the political persecution of Julian Assange to be used to hide the crimes of corrupt power. Power would be shared equally among the people if our democracy was genuine. Truth is not a crime. We must do our best to know and speak the truth. Those who depend on telling lies for their power and influence don't want journalists free to reveal the truth. The majority of people want to know the truth, but many believe the lies, which creates a great problem for all of us. Adolf Hitler and those who have copied from him have shown us the horrific results of propaganda. Julian Assange has shown us the way to publish the truth and use it as an antidote to propaganda. Free Julian Assange. Prosecute war criminals. The smearing of Julian Assange has allowed the military-industrial complex to arbitrarily detain and torture an innocent journalist to prevent wider understanding and to intimidate all other journalists from ever revealing the truth about the crimes committed by the military-industrial complex. It is in the public interest that the truth about Julian Assange is known to everyone. And just remember, Julian said, they are not after him, they are after you. He just gets in the way. Free Julian Assange. Free Julian Assange. There is only one decision.
No extradition.
There is only one decision.
No extradition.
Inmate
Our mate.
Julian Assange.
Our mate.
Our mate.
Julian Assange.
Inmate
Our mate.
Julian Assange. Thank you, folks.